You're listening to the E2C Network, podcast by Auburn fans for Auburn fans.
War Eagle Auburn fans, welcome to No Huddle, your source for Auburn football news and discussion, part of the E2C Network. I'm AJ Richardson. I'm also here with Jared Davis. Spring practice. It's practice time. Week 2 of 2021. We get a spring practice. We got some stuff to talk about. Jared, you ready to jump into this, baby?
Let's do it, man. It's always good to be talking about football, even though March Madness is going on. So, don't want spring practice to end because then it's a long wait until August. But, yeah, I'm ready to talk about it, man.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So, over this last week, since we last did our podcast, we had Derek Mason, Mike Bobo, and we also had Harrison kind of review our scrimmage that happened on Thursday. So we got a good bit to talk about. So let's just jump into it. Let's start out with Derek Mason's press conference. His presser had tons of energy. You could tell Derek Mason. Maybe that's why I'm pumped up right now, because Derek Mason got me pumped up. And I was sitting on my couch watching this presser. And I'm just thinking, if he can get me pumped up, think about how much he can get his players pumped up and ready to hit the other guys. I mean, one of his mentalities, and I loved it, was wreck everything I see. And if a defensive player has that mentality coming in to play defense for Derek Mason, I'm going to love it. I love some hard-hitting football. So
sounds like he's got you ready to like put on some pads and try to walk on or something.
I mean, I may have my football helmet somewhere around this in my house or something. I don't know. Maybe I'll go take that and bring it to Auburn.
Let me know. So video it if you try to walk on. Video it. We need to share it. We need to share it with the family here.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Me, little 5'5" dude walking on. No way. Shoot. I would die. I would die. Think about me going up somebody against like JJ Pegues, 300-pounder. Like, no way. 0% chance of that. I'd
start crying. I'm getting too old. I would fake an injury right before they hit me or something.
Yeah. But I was really impressed with Derek Mason. I mean, I see why, just from his press conference, why everybody, I mean, I said it myself. I think he was a home run hire as far as defensive coordinator. He brings the energy. He knows defense very well. And one of the questions he was asked was about, his transition from being a head coach to now being a defensive coordinator. And one of the things I got out of that was he's able to really focus on defense, which, that's to be expected. But he was saying that on a personal level, he's able to connect even better with his defensive players because now he's got a focused view on those players on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that's usually what kind of, spurs on a really good defense is really knowing your guys, what makes them tick, what gets them motivated to play. And I think that's one thing that Derek Mason definitely has in his pocket is that ability to build those relationships, even though he's just now coming in and he didn't recruit these guys. But, I mean, another phrase, and this is one of my favorites of his, he said he's like a kid in a candy shop with how much talent and versatility that all the players have on the defensive side of the ball. And Jared, like, what kind of makes you think that he's gonna be able to make this into what his offense is, or for his defense, and what that's gonna be? How do you think that's gonna look over these next few weeks?
I think that he mentions the kid in a candy shop. His forte is the secondary, and that's probably our strong suit on defense. It was, we had a couple guys decide to come back, which was good. That could have maybe tested the pro waters.
Yeah, Roger McCreary could have easily gone.
Yeah, he could have. And Smoke, how Auburn's got a history of players leaving really before they probably should, and Smoke could have been added to that line, but he didn't. He came back. He's got some talented guys there, so I understand why he's excited. And at the linebacker core, we keep mentioning it. We mention it every week, but he's got the leading tackler from the SEC coming back in linebacker, and he's got a former 5-star with, Owen Papo, who gets better every year. So, I mean, I heard the linebackers talking about how excited they are because essentially what this defense does is the setup is the guys up front are meant to just take up space and then clear the path for the linebackers. And so they are like real excited because this is going to allow them to get after people a little more. Probably going to be a little more action in the backfield from the linebacker perspective. It's going to be a whole different defense. Now, we had a good defense for 5 years, so
Yeah.
you know it's going to be hard to take a step forward. But I think there's a chance we take a step forward.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kevin Steele, I feel like for the most part has a positive name around Auburn, even despite, the coaching, rumor stuff that, he was whatever was going on there. Who knows if that's actually true? But for the most part, him as a defensive coordinator, most people around Auburn really loved him. The players loved him. The fans loved him. I loved him. I thought he pretty much did what Auburn needed to do a lot of times on defense. There were very few games where I thought, oh, wow, Kevin Steele, he did something wrong where he sent a blitz where he shouldn't have. That was very rare, which, I mean, I feel like that's that's a good sign for a defensive coordinator. So Derek Mason, he's got some big heavy lifting to do to get up to where I kind of viewed where Kevin Steele left off. But I think there's capability there. I mean, he's got the talent level of a lot of these players that I really do think that we can, with his 3-4-4-3 kind of, changing up what he does on defense, I think there's a good potential there for us to do really well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, outside of the rumors, which we'll never know if they're true, so we'll just give him the benefit of the doubt there. Kevin Steele still has a good name. What he did against LSU 2 years ago, I mean, they literally changed the defense to something they've never done the week of the game and held Burrow and them to like 23 points. Let's be honest, that whole defense that whole year was championship worthy. I mean, we basically could not do anything at Florida offensively. Defense almost scored there, which probably would have changed the game. We couldn't do much offensively against LSU. And we only lost 3 times in the season. I mean, you win one of those, it's a different story. So, yeah, he's got big shoes to fill. I don't think we take a step back. I think the key is don't take a step back. I don't think we take a step back, and I think there is potential to take a step even more in a positive direction, especially in the secondary, because that's what he does. I mean, that's his specialty, and he's got some talented players there.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally everything from the front seven to the secondary. I mean, he just went off on a list. He already knows the starters. He knows the second stringers. I feel like that's a good sign that he's already really understanding who these players are and what their strengths are and where they've played previously. But even with that, it sounds like there's going to be some versatility that's kind of built into, hey, you're going to be playing potentially DB, but hey, if we need you to step back and nickel, you have to know that position as well. And I feel like that will help everybody understand, even if you're not playing nickel, but only a couple plays a game, you understand what the nickel position is doing on that play. So it helps you with what you're trying to do. So I feel like there's lots of benefits to how this approach to versatility and knowing multiple positions around what you normally do can really pay off. One of the other kind of just interesting things that Derek Mason mentioned, and I had no idea about this until he had mentioned in his press conference, was he wasn't even really considering college, to come back to college and coach there. He was actually looking at going to the NFL, which, I mean, maybe he just needed a break from it, but after him coming through town and Brian Harsin essentially and him met for a few hours, they decided this is a good spot for Derek Mason. And the mentality, the ideology of what Harsin was wanting to do with Auburn and how Derek Mason can kind of fit into that on the defensive side, that got me excited. I mean, just to think, that's the kind of mentality of like, I'm done with college, but for him to come to Auburn, buy in, and you can already tell, love coaching, just being a defensive coordinator again, kind of reignited that energy in him that he was known for a long time. So excited to hear that, and I had no idea about that either.
Yeah, I didn't have any idea about it either. And so that's pretty cool that we were able to grab a guy that was thinking about going to the NFL, and then quality guy at that. And did you hear the joke? I don't know if it was them talking to each other or if Bobo was giving advice before he went on to do his press conference, but Bobo apparently told him to make sure he didn't use any of those Vanderbilt or Stanford words. He told Bobo that everything was going to be all right. So that's funny because for those that don't know, he coached at Vanderbilt and Stanford, and both of those are highly regarded schools. So
Yes.
I thought that was just showed he's got a little bit of humor,
Yeah.
which I like. I appreciate that.
And I appreciate the little, jabbing between offensive and defensive
Yeah,
coordinators a little bit.
Showed a little camaraderie there. They're getting along, and I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I feel like, usually they don't have to coordinate completely what they do, but there has to be some unity between what they're doing. So that's good to see. There's already kind of, the friendship and the relationship starting to build there. Let's switch over to offense a little bit and kind of what Mike Bobo said, because this is where I thought we got a little tidbits about different players. And also, one of the things I really liked was you're getting in, it started to show you some of the mindset of why Mike Bobo previously has been a really good quarterback coach and what he's done to get guys like Aaron Murray at Georgia to play really well, and along with a ton of others, great quarterbacks throughout his career. So let's talk about that because I think that's one of the most interesting things. So he was asked about Demetrius Davis, who's some people thought maybe he might come in, challenge Bo for his position at quarterback, and he kind of skirted the question around what his expectations are for Demetrius. And he just said, hey, my mentality for him is I just want him to learn the basics, learn how to call plays, how to get guys in position, learn the mechanics of the game at a high level. And really the two other words that he used for getting quarterbacks ready, and just for a backup quarterback, getting them ready to play in the SEC, in college football, is big. But the two words he used were confident and comfortable, which I like both of those because Jared, I feel like I still have PTSD from first off Jeremy Johnson, who lacked both of those, and how the quarterback position really relies on those. Do you have any thoughts on what you've kind of learned from Mike Bobo and his mentality on running the offense and coaching quarterbacks and all that?
Yeah, you mentioned Jeremy Johnson. Two of them that come to mind to me are Jeremy Johnson and Kyle Frazier. Both of them are highly.
Yeah.
We joke about them, but there were many colleges that wanted those guys,
and people thought they were going to be the next Cam Newton.
And people always joked, "Oh, Frazier, the Heisman candidate." Other schools would joke. I'm like, look, we didn't label him that. Like that was media outlets that were saying, "Hey, this guy's a stud," and we forget he came in and. That one quarter that Nick Marshall was sidelined for, just breaking team rules, and he had to come in and play against Arkansas. I think he had 3 touchdown passes. So, you got to expect the next year he's going to be good. But anyways, you're right. I think that so there's multiple facets to being a good quarterback. One of them is you have to be talented. The other one is you have to be able to handle it mentally. And I think Bobo and them are probably going to try to, slow drip that so that it doesn't overwhelm the young quarterbacks, so that they don't go out there and look like deer in the headlights. I think with Bo, they're treating it differently. And I've read articles where number one, they both expect the quarterback to be the leader. They expect them to be there before everybody else and not leave until anybody else does and watch more film than everybody. And this is their expectation of the quarterback. And then they also, as far as Bo goes with him being a junior, they're putting a lot on him, so they're not slow dripping it with him. They're like, you need to get this, and to his credit, they said that he has gotten a lot of it.
Yeah, and one of the things it was kind of funny. Mike Bobo kind of made a joke about it. He was like, Bo Nix is asking tons of questions, and he was like, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's hilarious. It kind of reminded me of you've had kids, I've had nephews, and nieces that are 2 years old, but it reminds me of like a 2-year-old, like asking you tons of questions. But why? What about that? And you're like, that's what I'm imagining, but in a good way, like learning, like you're what is the word? Curious. That I feel like the curiosity and the learning mentality is a good thing to have. And that's something that, us as adults sometimes forget is you got to be a little curious and question asking and not just assuming everything.
There's probably two sides to it. He's probably like, wait, you're a junior and you don't know this? But on the flip side is, hey, you don't know this, so I'm glad you're asking. Like, let's get this down. Bo is apparently asking a lot of questions. And they said, the article I read said it was pretty unique because they still can't get on the road yet. And so the coaches are around campus a little more than normal. And so Bo is like attached to their hip, which I'm sure after a while, as with kids, gets a little annoying. But when it comes game day, they're going to be glad he was,
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be so instrumental with how Mike Bobo kind of reads Bo Nix's body language or how he's throwing that day and what kind of plays you call that set up the players for success, even if they're not 100% on that day.
What do you think is there's several things. What's the main thing they need to correct with Bo for him to reach his true potential?
I mean, when I think back on it, there's the long ball accuracy, which a lot of that comes down to his footwork, and his footwork in general. I'm not a footwork quarterback expert by any means, but I know when he's throwing it wrong, you watch him and his weight does not look balanced at all. He's just kind of throwing because he's athletic. He's capable of throwing pretty well, even if he doesn't have perfect form. But to get to that next level, especially if you go to what we're probably going to is more of a pro style offense, that's you got to get that down. You've got to be precise with every movement that you have. So I think that's where you start.
Do you think his talent, his arm strength and stuff has been a little detrimental to that? Almost in a sense of, hey, I not like he would ever say this, but he knows it. Hey, I'm good enough. My arm's strong enough. I don't have to be perfect footwork. Do you think that's possible?
It could be. I mean, I know last year it was a big thing for Chad Morris to come in, and he was, the quarterback doctor or whatever you want to call him. But it sounded like Bo sometimes wouldn't necessarily take the teaching, and that not taking the teaching. I mean, the teaching was being there. It was, do this kind of footwork, fix these things, and we didn't necessarily see that much of a difference last year. And I hope that under a third coordinator, Mike Bobo is able to get through to him and work on those things. That's just my thought.
Well, Bo Nix is, no offense to any Georgia fans, I think from a talent level, Bo Nix is more talented than Aaron Murray and maybe David Green. So if Bobo's able to, those guys broke records in the SEC. If he's able to do that, then there's talent there to work with. But if it never comes together, you never know.
Yeah. I was thinking back to your original question on what does Bo need to work on, and another thing that came to mind was the timing of his throws, because the way in the previous years he would throw the ball and he would wait for the guy to almost be perfectly open before he would throw it, instead of throwing it before the guy made the break to where he'd be perfectly open. So there was a little bit of an anticipation game that was lacking, and I hope that we kind of work on that with Bo. It's about timing. You got to trust your receiver to break when they're supposed to and get open when they're supposed to.
Well, I think that'll look, the offensive line has their own problems, and we've gone over that many times, but other people can do things to help them out. So I think you're right. I think if we are more in a timing rhythm where, hey, it's a 3-step drop, you put the ball where it needs to be, that's going to help the line out as well, as opposed to having to wait on the guy to actually make his break. That half a second there matters. And it really matters for the DB. If you're already throwing it, the DB's having to watch the receiver. He can't look at the quarterback as well. So it's if the ball is put in the right spot, it's almost impossible for a DB to make a play on it.
Yeah, and if Bo's got his footwork correct and he's got his mechanics on point, you got a really good probability of that pass getting completed versus if he doesn't have his feet set correctly and he passes the ball, it either goes too high over his head, over the receiver's head. That can happen. That will happen. It's happened before. And if you get your footwork correct, you're less likely to do that.
Yep, I agree.
Hey Auburn fans, I want to take a quick timeout from this episode to bring your attention to something very special. Here at the E2C Network, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best content for Auburn fans out there. And best of all, it's free to you. But just because it's free doesn't mean there aren't costs, especially when you have a library of hundreds of podcasts, videos, blogs, and more. Many of you have reached out and asked how you can support this network in the past. Well, now I have your answer. It's called the E2C Network Booster Club over at patreon.com/E2C Network. There you'll find a membership monthly reward system where you can sign up for as little as $1 and get different perks at different tiers. Some of those perks include things such as apparel, eligibility to join us on future podcasts, recognition as an E2C Network booster, exclusive communications, and bonus content that is available nowhere else. If you love this network and want to help us keep producing podcasts like this one, please head on over to patreon.com/E2C Network to join the E2C Network Booster Club. You can also get there by going to our website, e2cnetwork.com/support. Whether you decide to join or not, we are still so appreciative that you would support us by just listening and being here, because each and every one of you is part of our E2C Network family. Well, that's it. Timeout's over. Let's get back into the episode.
One of the other, I just wanted to throw this because there were some really good nuggets out of Mike Bobo and Derek Mason. But Mike Bobo's presser, I love this phrase about Demetrius Davis. He said, even though he's 5'11", he's a yoked 5'11". I was like, I don't know. I just love that the coach would call him yoked.
Yoked. He's yoked. I like it. It's always funny with these height things. Sometimes usually a 5'11" guy can convince them to put him at 6 foot.
Yeah, right.
It's so funny with this stuff, but yeah, I mean, I know you're just talking about the phrase that was made, but I saw the guy play on his high school film, and he's very talented. Probably needs a little bit of work on his just mechanics overall from his arm perspective, but he is very shifty, great athlete, and I mean, he probably can't be with these two guys are probably top 10 in the country as far as how they've worked with quarterbacks. So you got to be happy about that.
Yeah, no doubt.
With Harsin and Bobo, that is.
A couple other things about that I got out of the offense and what Mike Bobo was talking about had to do with kind of, we talked about it last week, even them getting under center and also shotgun. It's going to be really a lot of different mixture of that. But something along with that, when you're under center, a lot of times it's power run. Like, it's happening. It's going to be a run, and it's pretty much getting that line of scrimmage and owning that line of scrimmage, which I think is also going to help when I'm thinking about our offensive line, because he was asking about our offensive line. What's it looking like? And he pretty much said it looks about the same as last year. And there's lots of room to improve. And one of the things last year that I really liked, and Jared, I think we've talked about this, is towards the end of last year, our offensive line, before we had injuries, we had a pretty good run game going. And that was behind an offensive line that some would say was average, if not below average. So what's that getting you to think about when you start thinking about what we might be doing on offense this next year?
I think the O-line is, if everybody that was on there comes back, I think the O-line is going to be improved because there was a lot of youth on that line. I don't even know about whether they were sophomores or whatnot, but playing time, a lot of youth. You're right. I mean, we were running the ball pretty well. I mean, it's kind of hard to not when Tank's healthy, but
Sure.
They were also still opening a lot of holes for him. So running game was not really. We could have won more games with our run game blocking last year. It was the pass protection, and Bo was running for his life. Sometimes he didn't have to. Most of the time he did. And when I watched the Super Bowl, same thing was happening to Mahomes, and he looked human. And so it just really reiterated the fact that if you don't have an offensive line to block for you, there's not much you can do.
Yeah.
And so we have to. But the thing that I got frustrated with, and I'm not a coach, but I got frustrated because I think we kept doing the same thing. I'm like, that's not working. So figure do some more quick passes, do something, run more screens. I don't know what you do. So I'm hoping the new staff will be able to put a plan in place that, okay, if the O-line's not a lot better, how do we build around that? How do we work with their deficiencies?
Yeah.
But I think they will be better, to answer your question.
Yeah, I think it will get better, especially if we start doing a little bit more, especially early on in the season. I can see us running the ball a lot more than we're passing the ball, just because that is a strength of our offense right now. We've got younger wide receivers. Bo doesn't have as much chemistry with those as he did with Seth Williams and Anthony Schwartz and Eli Stove and those that we had last year. So he's got to build that, and that only comes with time and reps.
It does, and I want to say one thing because people are probably like, what do you mean run more screens? I'm not talking about the wide receiver screen out wide. I'm talking about up the middle type stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Make the defense have to realize, we can't just go crazy towards the quarterback because we got to account for a screen up the middle. Because last year you and I talked about it a lot on the routes. I mean, we would run an RPO and then throw it out wide, and that did nothing because RPO is supposed to bring the linebackers in. So just I want to see more utilization of where the game's headed. RPO is a big part of that, but I really think getting under center, we're going to run the ball a lot more. I think Georgia used to be one of the better play action teams in the country, and I don't know if that was Mark Rick or Bobo. If it's Bobo, good things could happen because you get under center and you got Tank running it well, and then you throw in a great play action and somebody gets wide open down the sideline.
Give me some more Elijah Canyon down the sideline. Woo!
Yes, give me a lot of that down the sideline. That guy, I tell you, man. I know that was like 2 or 3 plays total, but you could tell he's got the it factor. Can he just do other stuff?
Yeah, I mean, Mike Bobo, he was asked about the wide receivers, and I think one of the first or second players out of his mouth was Elijah Canyon. So he's already standing out to Mike Bobo. So I'd expect a good amount of reps coming his way.
Which, real quick, let's talk about the benefit of that new rule they put in about 3 or 4 years ago where guys can play up to 4 games and keep their red shirt.
True.
Elijah Canyon probably wouldn't have played in that bowl game if that rule wasn't around. So that allowed, and this guy, who knows what he'll go on to do, but let's say he goes on to have a good year next year. That's because of that rule, because we would have not seen what Elijah Canyon could do.
Yeah.
But now that they can play 4 games, when it comes to bowl time, if they haven't played 4 games, put them all in. See what you got next year.
Well, exactly. And you could probably even, because of the way this next season is kind of set up, you might even be able to play some of them early on in the season because we've got non-conference. First 4 games are non-conference. And 3 of those are, the cupcake type games. And we might be able to get some of those guys in there maybe earlier in the season than maybe previously when, the non-conference is kind of, peppered throughout the season.
Yeah, the NCAA does a lot of really unwise things. I'm trying to put this properly. They do a lot of unwise things.
We don't have to be that nice in NCAA, right?
But that was one thing they did that was smart. I thought that was a really good rule. And I don't see any downside to that rule at all. So I thought that was a good one. So anyways, I'm going too much on that, but he could be one of the prime examples that benefits from being able to play without having to burn a red shirt.
Yeah, I agree, definitely. I didn't even know his name until the bowl game.
Nobody did. Yeah, nobody did.
And then he shows up and makes some.
He didn't even know.
Catches.
I'm kidding. He knew it.
He probably didn't know his name. One of the other things that Mike Bobo talked about, and then we'll talk about scrimmage after this, is about Tank Bigsby and kind of his mentality, because everybody knows, Bo Nix is going to be a leader on the offense, and then Tank Bigsby is also kind of right up there, because you can already see it in the way he plays. He doesn't care if Auburn has 0% chance of winning in a game. He's going to come out there and play his hardest and put Auburn in the best position to maybe win a game that we might not have before. And that's the kind of mentality that I look at with Tank Bigsby. Something else that Bobo kind of noted was he's got a mindset of greatness. And I think that word greatness, kind of usually when you think of great players, you think of for Auburn, it's Bo Jackson, Cam Newton's. But Jared, I want to kind of get your mindset and what you think about where other great players and their mentality and what that looks like. And maybe what do you think that Tank, his mentality kind of lines up with those?
It didn't get talked about a lot just because of everything else going on, but there were times on the sideline last year people were looking to Tank, and he was not shying away, not in a hey look at me flashy kind of guy, but he was like you could tell he had that leadership ability.
Yeah,
and that's pretty cool for a true freshman.
Yeah.
So I think he's got that leadership ability. I don't think he cares about the flash. I think that he's going to be a hard worker. You're talking about what makes you great. I think those things are, hey, look, I'm going to come put the work in every day, and I am not going to rely on what I did last Saturday. And that's how you are great.
Mm-hmm.
You can have good games, but if you get caught up in that and don't continue to work hard, you won't become great. Just seems like a leader. He really does, and mostly with how he plays on the field. Now, to hit the Bo Jackson, and I'll say even Cam, but he was just 1 year, to hit that Bo Jackson level, he's got a lot of work to do, but I'm one of the few that's saying he could. I'm one of the few saying if he stays healthy, he could become number 2.
I think the potential is there. I mean, even Cadillac Williams, his running backs coach, and Cadillac, I mean, we talk about him as one of the great running backs at Auburn.
Oh, he is.
And he sees that potential in guys like Tank Bigsby. And I think the mentality also for me, I see Tank. I mean, Bobo gave a pretty good example of this. He was like, Tank's sitting in Cadillac's office, literally talking ball with Cadillac in his off time when he doesn't have to, because he's hungry. He's wanting to get better. He's wanting to understand the games better. He wants to understand the blocking schemes better so he can become a better blocker. He wants to do everything better, and he's not content, which I think is another sign of greatness. You're never content. I mean, I think about somebody like Cam Newton, who, as much as he's been in the NFL for the last 10 years, he has never been content with where he's at. He's always wanted to get better. And you're seeing it now with him being at the Patriots. He's always wanted to get better. And that's the sign that you just want to, I mean, that's that next step, that next, potential that you might be the best player to ever come out of Auburn. And you got to have the mentality of working hard, getting the grind. And Tank's got that, I think.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's talk about the scrimmage and transition a little bit over to the scrimmage. Harsin did a presser after. He said there was lots of energy and competitiveness, which, that's good to hear. I mean, it's coach talk. But, I mean, there's some truth, I'm sure, behind that. Guys are excited, I'm sure, to get out there and actually hit full steam scrimmage style against guys across the ball from them. So, always love to hear what goes on then, because I feel like you can do drills, you can do 7-on-7 drills, that kind of stuff. But until you line up 11 on 11 in a game-like situation, I feel like you don't really understand what a guy is capable of. Sometimes guys shy away, and sometimes guys will shine because of putting them in a game-like situation. So, always love to see that. Jared, what did you kind of get out of the scrimmage and what went on over this last week? Not a ton. I mean, I think the biggie is just kind of getting more of a philosophical, idea of where we're headed, and I think we continue to get Bo under center and trying to get him comfortable with the snaps there. That just lets you know where we're headed directionally. I think it's going to be we keep saying it, but I think it's going to be a good mix, but a mix of pro and spread. I think there's not a ton. I think that they keep talking about, and you may have mentioned it, but the thing that keeps coming out is the love that they have for JJ Pegues. Mm-hmm.
I think that them just being able to get him on the field and actually see him, what he's able to do at that size, that just wows anybody. So, yeah, I mean, I think that, at the end of the day, it's more about at this early of a stage, it's not about how somebody specifically performed or didn't. It's more about getting your plan in place so that they can take that info once practice has the ends and they can go do their own studying and master that. So when we get back together in fall, that's when you're like, all right, now I really need to see, okay, well, how are you actually performing?
Yeah, and that point, I think Brian Harsin put it in terms of, he said, operate and execute. So operate, the play is called, and then executing that play. And that's kind of what you're getting at with that, is knowing how to line up and then actually doing what you're supposed to. And that's on both sides of the ball, offense, defense, and special teams. That I think is right now getting established. I mean, it's not like we're hearing, oh, wow, Tank broke a 100-yard run, or, maybe the next, Elijah Canyon out of the wide receiver corps comes and makes a ridiculous catch, one-handed catch or something. We're not hearing that. And that's okay, because right now they're building the foundation for, hey, in 3 weeks we got A-Day. And in A-Day we might see some flashes of that kind of stuff. And that's going to be fun, because you're starting to build on the foundation of what's getting done in these first few weeks of practice. I
mean, how many guys have you heard who were studs during spring practice and A-Day that never started? So I think as fans, we easily get carried away with positive and negative aspects of this. And I really think if we get back, I think this is what Harsin and them are good at, of like, hey, get back to the basics.
Yeah.
At this point, we're just trying to get you conditioned. We're trying to get you to understand what we're trying to do, what we're all about. There's no doubt you want to see great plays, but that doesn't lead to you starting next year. All right, let's get you the plan in place so you can take that, study it, work on it. We'll see you back here in fall.
Yeah, and a lot of this, Harsin said, was, they did some things that were really good, and there were some things that they did not so great. And spring is the time to correct those. And that's what Harsin was talking about. We're going to go back and watch, how did each individual player do during the scrimmage, and what did they do well and what did they not? Let's work on the things that they're not doing well, so that by the time fall comes, they've already ironed those things out and are able to do as best as they can on the field. There were a couple turnovers in this scrimmage. There was an interception. It was not Bo, so one of the other quarterbacks. And there was a fumble. And one of those turnovers ended up happening in the red zone, which is good for the defense, but not good for offense. So, take it as you wish. And this is, again, one of those things where I think early in spring practice, or even early in fall practice, I feel like defenses have a little bit of an edge over offenses, because offenses are kind of like a finely tuned machine. And I feel like defenses are just, ravaged dogs that are ready to go eat some meat. Like, they're ready to just go. And there is obviously some tuning that happens, but I feel like the advantage is definitely on the defensive side. So I wasn't shocked by that the defense probably had a little bit of an edge and did probably a little bit better than offense. It's just early on, so not too worried about that. And one other kind of thing to note, they were hitting full steam, so they got to see, how were guys tackling, especially on defense. How on the offensive side were guys breaking tackles. So you get a more realistic than just almost kind of playing two-hand touch like they had done. And it's more than two-hand touch. I feel like I'm kind of like oversimplifying it. They're not playing two-hand touch, but not hitting each other at full speed until really this scrimmage. I think that pretty much does it for the scrimmage. Anything else about the scrimmage you wanted to mention, Jared?
No, I guess we probably, and you may have, I apologize. We need to, I guess, maybe just mention I don't know if it happened during the scrimmage, but the gentleman, the player that got hurt, tore his ACL, Jeremiah Wright.
Yeah, I had not mentioned him yet.
It's too bad, really, because number one, it's bad no matter what. They put in all this work, but to come off a COVID year, which wasn't really a real year, doesn't feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
you're like, all right, let's get back. We're probably going to get closer to having fans back and all that and the funness that goes along with it. And then, bam, to tear your ACL, you're out. I mean, that's tough. So
Yeah.
I feel for the kid. Hope he, and he was going to be an asset. I feel for the kid. And then you're like, all right, from a team perspective, I mean, he was probably going to be one of the top guys on the defensive line. So it hurts the team.
Yeah, it does. I mean, he was going to be a good depth piece. I mean, there was even, I think it was, Derek Mason was asking about him. And that was one of the players that stood out to him. And then just literally a couple of days later towards ACL. And you're like, there's potential for this guy. And it just stinks when players that have really high potential and just something tragic like this happens where they can't play probably for another at least a football season. So I just feel for him and hope he's able to heal up and stick with the recovery process so that he can come back and make an impact when he's able to be fully healthy.
Yes, sir.
Auburn will take a week off for this next week, and we'll actually return back to practice on April 5th. There's really not a spring break per se this year for Auburn University's schedule, and they're just kind of doing a quote-unquote spring break for spring practice. So they'll get some time to relax, recuperate, and then they'll just get back to it. And then we got a couple more weeks of good practice, and then finalized by the 8-day scrimmage that's going to happen on April 17th. So excited to see that.
Have they mentioned attendance stipulations for 8-day?
We're recording this on Sunday, and I have not heard anything. But considering they had fans in the stand for that other practice, I'd expect some fans. Now, I don't know exactly what they're going to do. Because previously, they've you can buy tickets ahead of time, or you can just show up at the gate, pay $5 or whatever it is, and go to the 8A game. So I would suspect there's going to be some fans, just not sure where Auburn's going to fit with what percentage of fans can come. All right, Jared, before we get out of here, how can the people stay in touch with you?
Just find me on Facebook and Instagram under Jared Davis.
And you can find me on Twitter at @JAY_. It's always great to be an Auburn Tiger and War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Before you get out of here, we want to remind you of a couple things. Head over to E2CNetwork.com, our website where you can find everything that you'll ever need from us, podcasts, blogs, and even ways to help support the show. If you want to find individual episodes, you can download all of these on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. So until we see you again, I want to remind you of one thing, that here at the network, we believe in Auburn and love it. The only question remains, do you?